In today's Black History fact, we're going to talk about my father, MacArthur Stringer, Vietnam War veteran, war hero, purple hearted Vietnam War hero, MacArthur Stringer. My dad, my father, multiple tours in Vietnam. You understand me? When he got injured in Vietnam, they just couldn't keep him. Couldn't keep him away. He had to go back and start training Marines and raising Marines, and he became a Marine drill sergeant. Just a monster, a megalithic figure in the Black community. And as we celebrate Black history, we're gonna talk about them soldiers that you might not know about. My father's still living, MacArthur Stringer. After he was in the Marines, he became one of the first Black cops, if not the first Black cop in Freeport, New York. And he ended up getting shot in the head, some type of projectile in the head. I say, and many people say he got shot in the head, but if you speak to him, this man will tell you he took a bullet fragment in the head. Whatever happened to him went into his head. He had to get a metal plate in his head because it cracked his skull. So the projectile or whatever the piece of the projectile that went into his head cracked his skull. He had to get a metal plate in his head, and he wasn't able to return to service fully, completely. He tried to return to service, and then after a while he just couldn't keep up because of the medication he was on, the bullet fragment, cracking his skull. And what happened to him in Vietnam, if you hear his tapes, his therapy tapes, because he never talks about it. But what happened to him in Vietnam, I heard about it on his therapy tapes. He was a leader. He was a sergeant, and he was leading some men. To be a leader over there, it was, when my father said he got there, these were when the men were rocking ear chains. The American soldiers were rocking the ears of their victims around their necks. This was war. This was war. Men being shot, killed, children being killed. This was war. My brother and I were Agent Orange babies. My father was exposed to Agent Orange while he was over there, because they was bombing, their own soldiers. America was bombing their own soldiers with chemical warfare when they was on the ground. So my father was down there. He was a war dog. He survived all of that. But when he couple, I think two or more of his men got separated from the group, the battalion, and as a leader, my father, sent the others forward, and he went back to track the other two men that got lost. He caught up with those men. Those men were pinned down in a firefight. He rescued those men. You understand me? With force and violence. Pulling out, letting loose, protecting men. My father's a real hero, the real fucking deal. You understand me? He's such the real. This was jungle. This wasn't around the block where you just send your friends up the block and you guys, once you get them to safety, hey, I'm gonna go back and get my other friends who we left at the store. No, this was a jungle, baby. He sent his battalion on, and as a leader, he went back and got the flock that got missing, dude. My father's a hero, and they honored him as such. So he went back to get the couple of men. After a firefight, the men got freed. They start walking. He sends them ahead again and starts tracking behind them. So he, running cover. So as those two men are running, he's running cover, and he's the last one on the leg again. And it was a couple of men. I think it was like three, a couple of men. But he's the last one leg on the leg of men that he's, saving and freeing from that firefight. So he's running cover for them. And at this point he doesn't know what happens if somebody stepped on a landmine, or if somebody hit him with some type of projectile, or threw a bomb at them. Whatever the case was, he ended up flying up in the air, and he describes it as the force was so high he don't know how he came back down to the ground. He said the force was just pushing and pushing and pushing him, and he said he felt like two angels just put their hands on his shoulders and threw him back down to the ground. You understand me? And that's so crazy to think that something can lift your body up so high and so fast that you just think you're just going to keep on going. And so he said these angels pushed his body back down to the ground, and he landed. Wherever he landed, his guts was all out of his body. He said his penis, his nuts was down by his ankle. He didn't even know. He said he felt fine. I guess because he was still in shock. But when his superior came and looked at him, another superior came and looked at him. When they caught up with him, uh, this man freaked out. And my father said he had a lot of respect for this superior because the superior was there when he got there, and the superior had the air chains on, and it was his first experience. This superior knew the jungle better than him, and he was stone cold. He said he seen they all seen killing, and he never seen him freak out. He seen this dude freak out. Then he said he knew something was up. He looked down at his body. He could see his guts out of his body. He could see his nuts. He didn't have no clothes on. He could see his nuts and his penis down by his fucking ankle and calf. So this is how he's describing the fucking story. And they put him back to fucking together, and they Purple Heart him. After they put him back together, he returns back to service to be a fucking. He goes back to Vietnam and starts training Marines. He wants to return back to service. He starts training Marines, dude. My pops is the real deal. MacArthur Stringer. Look him up. Purple Hearted. He starts training Marines. Then after he does that, he leaves that and becomes one of the first black police officers in Freeport, New York. Becomes one of the first black police officers in Freeport, New York. My uncle tells me about him. Tells me Pops was a good cop. He never used to arrest people. He used to just put them in the back of the cop car and take them home. Come pick them up from their house. Some type of domestic thing. Drive them around, drive them around the block. You understand? Telling them to cool off. So my pops was a good cop in the community. The community respected him in Freeport, New York. But I just wanted to shine that light on. We don't talk about these our black men, who's making things happen. And my father wasn't there like that when I was growing up. My father raised me like a Marine. He dropped me off in a war zone and came back and checked on me periodically. You understand? My pop showed me how to climb a tree. You understand? He said, climb that tree, got up the tree, boom, he was out. My pops, I remember him giving me a bath one time when I was young. He kept just dunking my head under the water, and I'm coming out and I'm just crazy laughing. And I just remember my pops constantly, being like that, and then he disappeared. I wouldn't see him no more, for years or something. And he come back in. My pops is on 60 something pills and medications and all that type of shit. Man, I love my father to death. My father is my hero. You understand? And nobody could ever take that shit from my father. Don't matter if he wasn't there to raise me like that. You know how many black men was going through shit, and we want to put shit on top of them. Black men was the subject and the focal point of white men's rage. White men running. It's a masculine patriarchal society, right? And so who was at the top? White men. And who was at the bottom? Who was getting mass incarcerated? Black men were being mass incarcerated. So for black men to come up and still be up, being valuable men, and also taking the brunt. Black women say Malcolm X was the one who said black women was the most unprotected, and that's because our men were being mass incarcerated. Also, we have to understand that, and just so many forces and whatever's going on that left so many fatherless homes, dude. The war on drugs desecrated our community. It was a real drugs. You know what I'm saying? Real drugs. People being killed, families being split up, child soldiers doing double digits. 14 years old, 15 years old, they giving them 22 some odd years for victimless crimes behind the war on drugs and all these things. So, for our black men to go through all of that and be what we are, we have to understand we all going through it. And, black women weren't unprotected. Black men gave their lives to protect them. Look at the numbers in mass incarceration. We took the brunt of that anger, and black women were allowed to be successful and get jobs and go to college and do all of these things and not feel the rage, the blunt arm from that white man. We did. We took that rage, and we still do take that rage. My father went to Vietnam and fought in Vietnam, and they came home to another war. Mass incarceration and black men still being treated like this. Like, let me tell you something. You can't bash black police. You can't bash brown police. You wouldn't want to live in America without black and brown police. Trust me, black and brown people. You would not want to live in no America without black cops, black men. You understand? You need black cops. My father said it's like this. You got black cops, white cops. Some of them come to do the job, and then some of them try to become the job. And he said I could tell right away just by talking to them. If they're civil and they have civility, or if they're just like overcome by everything that comes with that. And they take it out on the community. At the end of the day, these are public servants, and they're here to serve the community. Some way we got so far from that by, you know, the unarmed killings and stuff, and the judicial system that allows these things to happen, you know, we think that the public servants have some type of greater power than us. Then they don't. They don't have more power than a private citizen. As soon as you put on that uniform, that blue uniform, you actually lose power. You relinquish your power. You're a servant. You're a public servant. You're a peace officer and a peacekeeper. You took an oath to that.